Ordering black coffee used to be so simple. You'd either go for a short, strong shot of espresso or a larger mug of filter coffee, ordered diner or cafe style. But pop into a specialty cafe today and you're presented with a broader range of options, most popularly including the traditional Americano and the newer Long Black. Now both of these drinks essentially start with espresso and dilute it with hot or boiling water. So what's the difference between them? Where did they come from? And most crucially of all, which is best and which should you order? To find out, I asked two cafe owners right here in sunny Brighton. So let's hear what they have to say. Over to you.
I'm Chris, and I run Bond Street Coffee and Frida Coffee in Brighton.
Hi, I'm Stuart. I run Triple Point Coffee in Brighton.
Okay, Chris, thanks for joining me on this experiment. You've got two coffees in front of you, two black coffees. Can you first of all identify which is which?
This is an Americano, and this is a Long Black.
So in the lighter green cup, I have a Long Black, slightly short actually. And then in the larger blue one, I have an Americano.
Most obviously, just looking at that, one is bigger than the other. Is that all there is to it?
I think it depends who you ask. I think in all seriousness, I think each cafe sort of has their own rules.
So here, I make a Long Black in a 6-ounce cup with a double espresso. I make an Americano in an 8.5-ounce cup with a double espresso. So there's about twice as much water added to the espresso in an Americano as there is to a Long Black.
That a Long Black and Flat White are the Antipodean, the New Zealand versions of lattes and Americanos, right? My understanding was a short black is you get an espresso, or you get a long black because it's longer. So I think that's a lot of people get confused with long. No, I don't want a long black because they think of Americanos.
Yeah, it's actually a smaller drink, isn't it?
But I think you get a short black or a long black. So they came up with having less milk or less water on it. And in my eyes, that's all they are. A long black is an Americano, but it's got less water, so it tastes more like coffee.
So it's not just whether you want a big drink or a small drink, it's whether you want how intense you want the flavour to be?
I would say so, yeah. It's how strong you want the drink to be.
But they both start with there's actually the same amount of coffee in both of them, right?
Yeah, the same amount of espresso in both.
Yeah, same amount of total coffee, total caffeine.
I've seen people online going long black, the espresso's poured afterwards, or the other way around, the Americans pour. And that's never how I got taught it or how I learnt it. That might be true for other people in other cafes, and maybe the internet will blow up and tell me I'm wrong.
In my cafe, I make Long Blacks slightly colder as well. I have a slightly colder hot tap and I have a slightly hotter hot tap. So I'll use the slightly colder one for the Long Blacks, just because it's going to make the coffee taste a little bit sweeter. You don't have to wait for it to cool down. Whereas Americanos, I think the average customer who buys an Americano prefers that coffee to be a little bit longer, a little bit hotter.
I think it looks pretty with the crema on top.
So which way round is that?
So that's espresso second, so water with the espresso poured on top. I think particularly with older style of espresso, which was a little bit darker, you could get a really beautiful crema, and I think that looked very aesthetically pleasing. I started making coffee 2007, I think it was. And there wasn't long blacks or flat whites in this country. And I remember someone going, oh, this is a flat white. And I'd be like, well, it's just like a little latte. I didn't really understand it.
Do you have an idea of the origin story of the Americano?
I have a story in my mind about Americans going to Europe in the war and being used to drinking filter coffee. So they wanted something that replicated that. So they took the espresso from this machine and watered it down loads, which is all it is watered down espresso.
They're both espresso and water?
So that's my story that I've heard. It's Americans in the war. I've not fact-checked that at all. I'm sure some historian, I imagine James Hoffman will go, oh no, actually I've looked into it. But that's the story I've heard.
As far as I'm aware, they were calling Americanos because the American soldiers posted in Italy during the war were asking for water in their espressos.
Because they were used to filter coffees back home.
Because they were used to their kind of longer drip American-style filter coffees.
And are there standard sizes for these two drinks?
I think it depends on the cafe, but to me, a long black should come in a cup, and it should be a 6-ounce cup.
Tell me what you think. Which do you prefer?
I prefer an espresso.
But if you were forced to have a bigger drink?
If I was forced, I'd have a long black. If I was in, for example, one of the big chains at a service station as I was going through and needed something, I tend to have a double espresso. If you order a long black, it tends to confuse the baristas at the big chains, not naming names. But I find if you order a double espresso with a bit of hot water on the side, I can make a sort of long black.
Exactly.
And I tend to go for that if I'm in somewhere that I don't trust.
When you go into a cafe, what do you order?
I'll usually have a filter if I can. I'll usually try something they have on guest because their house espresso tends to be heavier in roast. So I'm aiming for the lighter roast coffees that will be more likely brewed on V60.
But I like espresso, and I like filter coffee, and I like flat whites. And I just don't know when I ever would want a long black over an espresso. I like the taste of espresso. I don't need it to be weaker. So I find a long black is if I'm in a different cafe that I don't trust how they're steaming the milk, or I'll just have a watery black coffee and try and not think about it.
Do you serve more long blacks than Americanos?
I would say I probably sell one Americano for every 3 long blacks.
Right, so that's quite a substantial difference.
I sell a lot of long blacks because I can brew my guest coffee beans as espresso, and quite often the people that do want the higher acidity, more fruity, more floral coffees prefer them with slightly less water in them.
Okay, at Bond Street, which one of these 2 drinks do you sell more of?
Probably Americanos, I think. Yeah.
By a large margin?
Not by a lot. I think Americanos, particularly in this country, people know what they are. And I think people don't know what long blacks are as much.
And if somebody comes in and just asks for a black coffee, what are you serving them?
Often batch brew, to be honest. I'll often just give them batch brew, or I'll give them a sample of the batch brew so they get to try it, and I say, is this okay for you? Is that the sort of thing that you're after?
And a batch brew, that's like a filter process, like a jug?
Yeah. That's filter coffee made on a machine. Yeah, I make one almost every half hour, I would say.
Really? Every half hour?
Because I make them quite small, so I'm only doing, 1.2 litres a time. So yeah, I just cycle through them quite quickly, and I quite often chop and change the coffees. So I'll make one Kenya, one Ethiopia, one Kenya, one Ethiopia, so that if anyone drinks a batch brew and wants a top-up of another batch brew, it's quite common, I notice from my customers, it means they can have 2 different coffees.
In the last 6 months, I taught my mum what a long black was, and she is now drinking long blacks. But she hadn't come across long blacks, so hipsters like me know what they are. But I think the general public still knows what an Americano is.
Yeah.
And people like to order what they know.
Okay, and just wrapping up, why would you go for one of these drinks versus one of the many types of filters, whether it's a batch brew, a pour over, an AeroPress?
I have no idea, Gordon, because filter coffee is just way more delicious. Like why would I want watery espresso over a deliciously made filter coffee? It makes no sense to me. Filter coffee is way nicer. Watery espresso. I'll drink it when I need to, usually if I'm driving.
Okay, here I've got the Americano. It's a bigger drink. This is an Americano. To me, it's nice to have a big drink because it's something that you can sit down and enjoy for a long period of time, but I'm not quite getting all of the coffee flavors that I want. And I'm hoping that the long black, simply because it's less diluted, is going to give me what I'm after. This is the long black. You can already taste the coffee a lot more, and you can taste the different aspects of the coffee, if it's brighter or more bitter. I feel that I'm getting more of the coffee's personality here, whereas the Americano just felt like a kind of watered down coffee drink. But I guess it depends how much liquid you want as well. Yeah, that tastes already more intense to me. I can taste the coffee a lot more than I could in the Americano version. And this is why I normally, when I go into a cafe and I'm after a black coffee, and I maybe don't want to hang around for a filter, or I haven't got as much money on me, because sometimes they can be quite expensive, I would normally order a long black. Cheers. Regardless of Chris's preference, this is actually my regular drink. So there you have it. If you normally order an Americano but fancy a more intensely flavoured black coffee drink, why not try a long black next time you're in your favourite cafe? And speaking of favourite cafes, I'd love to hear which are yours, whether they're in Brighton, England, Europe or beyond. And I've got plenty of reviews of cafes from here and all around the world if you'd like to check some of those out. Which only leaves me to thank you for watching and to thank Chris from Bond Street Coffee and Stuart from Triple Point Coffee, both here in Brighton. If you're visiting town, I'd highly recommend checking out both of them. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.